We are back after a week off. Had a great weekend of college football, upsets everywhere. Vandy takes down Bama. 5 of the top 11 teams go down. Sorry we missed a week. A little bit of a hurricane impacted you over there, William. Hope everything's okay. Hope you guys are doing well in there in South Carolina.
We're good. Lost power for about 5 days. Now we're just helping other people out, trying to get their power back. But it's much worse up in Western North Carolina, and there's still some people that are affected down here. Kind of sucks, but hey, we're back. We're back to talk college football. We can escape from some of these terrible things going on. So this is the most beautiful thing of this sport.
And our thoughts and prayers with anybody that are down there in Florida, as it looks like they're about to get hit again.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
So we appreciate anybody joining us, taking their time, and getting ready for some college football here this week. But before we get into any football, we got a little bit of beer. We got a little bit of beer. We got a little bit of beer.
Boy.
Homestead Beer. Shout out Homestead Beer. Homestead Beer sponsoring this episode. We're going to drink their Sunkissed Wheat this week. For anybody that doesn't know Homestead Beer, for a decade, they've been perfecting their craft brewing everything from classic German Pilsners to bold double IPAs. You can visit their Columbus brewery or visit their community tap room to explore the diverse beers. Some classic American pub where every sip is better.
Let's find out.
I'm interested. Some sun-kissed wheat.
Look at that. Ah, that's a great noise.
Oh, I love it. Love it. Love it. Let's see.
You know, make this really good if you poured it into a Walk-On Redshirts Band Fall Weddings pint glass.
Oh, it's a good thing I'm doing that right now.
Oh, it'd be a shame if I was also doing the same.
Oh, yeah. Cheers to some sun-kissed wheat.
Oh, yeah. That's pretty good. Tastes very sun-kissed.
Oh, I like that.
That's good.
I like that.
The best part
that would go down. That goes down easy. Like I could probably drink 3 or 4 of those pretty quick.
Yeah, maybe while I'm up there, we'll have to stop by and try 3 or 4 of those.
I would drink 3 or 4 of those pretty easily. What would you give it out of 5?
4.5.
4.5. Yeah, I think I'm right there with you. A 4.5. That's a pretty darn good beer. I'm glad that we got plenty of them. Shout out to Homestead Beer.
Yeah.
Come back. If you're in the Columbus area, make sure to go check them out. Some great beer. We might have another one in store for them too.
Yeah, who knows?
Let's talk about this past weekend though. We got to talk about this past weekend. This past weekend might have been the best weekend of college football in the last 2-3 years.
Because Clemson beat Florida State at Tallahassee, right?
I mean, that happened. I guess that game was on the slate. I mean, 5 of the top 11 teams go down, 4 of them to unranked teams, and the other one that lost to a ranked team got absolutely throttled. It was the most boring game of the day, if we're being honest.
Yeah, it really was. And Jake, I don't know if you noticed, but 3 of those massive upsets, 3 of the matchups were SEC matchups. I mean, over the top dogs of the SEC. Missouri, I think everybody started to see that they were frauds, Jake. And but we didn't know what Texas A&M was, so we found out. Vandy over Bama was so much fun. I've never heard a quarterback in a post-game interview thank God, talk about how blessed he is, and then drop an F-bomb.
In like the next sentence.
That is the most Diego Pavia thing on the planet. He is America's sweetheart. He owns Alabama. Jake, did you know he's 3-0 in the state of Alabama at this point in his career?
I saw you put that out. That is actually an incredible stat.
Yep. So he was 2-0 against the state of Alabama, while with New Mexico State beating Auburn and Jacksonville State. And now with Vanderbilt, he's beaten Alabama. I cannot wait. Does Vanderbilt play Auburn this year?
I don't
think so. They probably banned him from ever coming back.
He does play at Auburn on November 2nd. Take Vandy now. Vandy now. This man is going to go 4-0 in the state of Alabama.
I love it.
I saw a tweet on Saturday. So I was at the Ohio State-Iowa game, because I have season tickets to Ohio State. And I saw a tweet in the middle of the game. Said, it's fun to pretend like Vanderbilt is going to win this game. Not going to lie. It was from the SEC. It just means more. It was a meme account. And I even said, would love to see it happen. I'll believe it when I see it. Because Vanderbilt's up 20-7. Yeah, sounds great. But I feel like I've seen this story before. Someone goes up big and then Alabama comes roaring back and ends up winning by 3 touchdowns. it actually got to a point where I was live betting on the game because the over, I was expecting Alabama to win. So I was doing the math in my head of, okay, Vanderbilt's up this many points. That means Alabama has to score that many points to win. Well, then Vanderbilt would score again. So I would bet the over again. And it kept hitting the over in the middle of the game. So I just kept hitting money, kept winning money on it because I thought that Alabama would win, but Vanderbilt was the one that kept scoring.
Yeah. You did that responsibly, though.
I did it very responsibly. Did it very responsibly. And one thing for this game is the Vanderbilt team took advantage of every mistake that Alabama made.
Absolutely.
Every mistake. I mean, Vanderbilt had to play a nearly perfect game to win this. Alabama is still an incredible football team. There's nothing that says that Alabama is not a very good football team. Vanderbilt is just better than I think everybody thought they would be. Now, I know they slipped up earlier this year, but they beat Virginia Tech in the first game of the year. Virginia Tech still does not look like a bad football team. And I think that win over Virginia Tech is proving that, hey, like Virginia Tech is probably a decent football team, and Vanderbilt's just better than Virginia Tech, meaning that if you put Vandy in the ACC, are they an 8-win team?
Whoa. No. They'd be, the ACC is the toughest conference in the country, maybe even the world. So I don't know if you can say that. Honestly, maybe I think they would. If we're being honest, I think Vanderbilt is a really good team. I think they're a really well coached team. What's his last name? Lee.
Clark, Lee.
Clark, Princess Leia. I think he's done a really good job of making Vanderbilt more relevant. I mean, they're starting to hang around in these type of games. I want to say last year they went toe to toe with Georgia for most of the game. So they're not. It's not that Vanderbilt is still the seller of the SEC. It's that they're changing their culture completely. And I think Coach Leia is doing a great job of having that happen. Now, like you said, Vanderbilt had to play nearly a perfect game, but also hats off to that coaching staff because they had Alabama down to a T. I mean, they did whatever they wanted to that stingy Alabama defense, and it seemed like Alabama's defense was a one-trick pony. They didn't really want to get out of man-to-man. They said, hey, our guys are better than your guys, and they were too stubborn to change out of that, and that ended up costing them. Now, it was the perfect storm because the offense stumbled out of the gate. They had the pick six. I'm pretty sure they fumbled late in the game too. So there was just some things that happened, and Vanderbilt didn't make any mistakes. So hats off to Vanderbilt. Hats off to the Commodores. Nashville was electric after the game. It was so much fun watching the field goal post go through downtown Nashville and into the Cumberland River. I feel like that's happened before in the state of Tennessee when a team from Alabama got upset. Has that not happened before, Jake?
We'll see what the state of Tennessee does in a couple weeks here when Alabama comes to town. Well, no, Tennessee hosts Alabama again in 2 weeks here.
Yeah,
I'm looking at the drive chart here, and Vanderbilt may not have had the longest drives, but they took advantage of the short fields plenty of times. They were pinning Alabama back. There was one drive they only went 20 some yards and had a field goal. Well, they started the ball at midfield, so they put points on the board. The old Vanderbilt teams would have gotten stuffed and punted the ball back. But Diego Pavia was putting that team on his back. He was doing it in the air. He was doing it with his legs. He ran the ball 20 times. Now, he only had 56 yards, but he had a long of 12, but he was making the plays when they mattered.
Yep.
He only threw 4 incompletions, 16 of 20, 252, 12.6 yards per attempt, 2 touchdowns, 96 quarterback rating. It's pretty darn good day for a quarterback.
Wasn't it 4th and 1 where he took the deep shot and the guy caught it on his fingertips? I mean, just a ballsy play call. I mean, that game was just beautiful, and I hated that I rolled my eyes when I saw them up 20-7. Like you said, we've heard this song and dance before. Let's move on. Let's watch something else. Speaking of that, how about Tennessee? Their calling card failing them. Their defense has shown up this year. So ever since Josh Heupel's been there, they've had these awesome, amazing, high-powered offenses, and they just could not stop a nosebleed. Now they have arguably one of the best defenses in the country, and their offense just goes kaput in Fayetteville. I mean, like, what the heck happened?
Yeah, the first half, they couldn't move the ball at all. They had 2 drives they actually went backwards on. 2 drives. You only had 4 in the first half, and 2 of them you ended up going backwards. They went -5 yards in each one of them. They had another drive where they went 8 plays, 29 yards, 9 plays, 32 yards, went on downs. I mean, this team couldn't move the ball. They had 60 yards in the first half. Actually, less than 60 yards. They had like 50 yards in the first half. Could not move the ball. I think we're seeing that Nico Iamaleava has talent, but he's not there yet. Well, he's very talented. He's got a lot of, the physiques that you're looking for in a high-profile quarterback. But, Brew McCoy's been in college for like 9 years at this point. He's expected to be one of the top wide receivers for them this year. Dante Thornton, another guy. He only had 1 catch, 42 yards. Like, these playmakers aren't stepping up. Squirrel White was the leading receiver in receptions because he had 7 receptions for 38 yards. He was averaging 5.4 yards per catch. Thornton had more yards, but like they couldn't move the ball. They couldn't move the ball downfield at all.
On the flip side, you had Dylan Sampson, who was running at 6 yards a clip, had over 130 yards, I think. Let's see. He had, 138 yards on the game. Like, why not keep feeding him? I mean, it's a low-scoring game. He's moving the football. Like, why are you trying to put it into a first-year starter's hands on the road when he's struggling? Like, ride the hot hand. Like, you don't have to win through the air every week.
Yeah, and I was surprised to see the Tennessee defense. Eventually, they did give in. Taylon Green was the quarterback for 95% of this game. Gets hurt. Malachi Singleton comes in, leads the game-winning drive down the field.
Insane.
And ends up rushing for a touchdown where they looked like they were going to try to stop, and then the 2 safeties completely backed off and let him score because they were wanting to have more time. Probably the right move if we're talking about it. When you're talking about that little time left, I believe there was only like a minute left on the clock.
Yeah.
They had a minute and 10. You'd rather have that minute and 10 knowing you need to go score a touchdown than let them take the ball down to 30 seconds. Then you're running 3 plays in a Hail Mary. Nico, though, the very last play, we got to talk about that for a second. Runs out of bounds.
Who did that remind you of?
Dan Orlovsky.
Joe Milton. I don't know if you remember.
Oh, Joe Milton did that too.
Yes. When they had the ball and he just ran out of bounds when the clock went out.
I mean, they got the ball down the 20-yard line where you were close enough you could run a full play. Like you could get it. Obviously, you're just going to end up getting a bunch of guys, in one area and hope somebody catches it. But as I'm watching that game, he's rolling out and it's like eventually you just got to throw it. Doesn't matter what the outcome is because you've got nothing to lose at that point. You're rolling out. You're not running 20 yards with 8 defenders coming straight at you. You're not going to find a way into the end zone from that. You're not Vince Young.
Yeah, that was a bonehead. That was just lack of awareness. That's the first-year starter, lack of awareness. And honestly, what I would suspect too, Jake, and I don't want to accuse anybody of anything, but that sounds like it wasn't practiced. Sounds like 2-minute drill's not practiced there. And I just don't know how you make that mistake in that time of the game.
No,
but
crucial mistake.
Don't look now, Jake. Can you tell me what Arkansas's record is without looking it up?
I mean, it's in front of me, and I'm honestly shocked. And they actually should be 1 win better because
they should be 5-1.
They could almost be 2 wins better because they've lost their 2 games by a combined 12 points.
They blew the Oklahoma State game. That was bad.
They did.
Who's the other team they lost to?
They lost to A&M by 4.
Oh yeah. That's a rivalry game. That happens.
So Arkansas actually goes into a week off here. Next week they go to LSU. They still have a brutal schedule in front of them, though. They still have LSU versus Ole Miss versus Texas at Missouri, and then they have Louisiana Tech and Mississippi State on the schedule. I mean, realistically, they should be in a bowl game.
Oh yeah,
they should be in a bowl game. Sam Pittman might save his job after this gauntlet of a schedule. We thought Florida had a tough schedule. Right now, it's looking like Arkansas might have just as tough as one, and they might survive it decently.
Well, and that's why preseason stuff doesn't really matter. Because everybody had Missouri as one of the best teams in the world, and they have the easiest schedule in the SEC, and they suck. They don't know how to play defense. They have terrible body line. I don't want to get too deep in that A&M game unless you want to, Jake. But the biggest thing I took away from that is that Missouri quit, and Missouri quit early. Look at the great teams in college football. Look at Miami. Look at Alabama, and look at Georgia. The top 3 teams right there. All of them have been down big. Now, Alabama ended up not finishing the comeback, but they didn't give up. They almost came back. Miami was down 38-10, right? Or was it 38-15 in the third quarter against Cal on the road? They come back and win. Georgia is down 28. Again, they don't finish the comeback. They don't give up. Missouri was down 2 scores, and there's guys like screaming and crying on the sideline. Luther Burden looked like he was about to he was pouting in a corner during timeout at recess. That was awful. And if they're that mentally soft, like, you're screwed for the rest of the season. Like, you're going to be down at certain points, and you're going to struggle at certain points. That's when your culture takes over and you overcome those situations. I was just very disappointed in that Missouri team. I mean, they look terrible.
One of the softest things to me was with 8 seconds left and you're down 41-7 is kicking a field goal.
It's a sad field goal. Shout out, pardon my take. It's a very
sad field goal. Like, you lost. You might as well try to score a touchdown. If we're being honest, you might as well try to score a touchdown, because all you did then was kick it off, and then A&M healed it. What's the difference between 41-7, 41-7, 41-10, or 41-14? Really,
double digits looks really nice. Double digits looks really nice, Jake.
Looks really nice. You got beat down by an A&M team. You might as well try to score the touchdown. I'll be honest. That's just kicking a field goal to me. Just kind of pathetic. Just you're going for points just to put points on the board to make it look better, but there's really no way to make 41-7 look that much worse than 41-10.
Well, if we're being technical, I think it is necessary for them to score as many points as possible. Say they do turn their season around and they get their head out of their rear end and they start winning games. If they tie with anybody at the end of the year, it comes down to point differential, or it comes down to points scored, all the different tiebreakers. So I guess you got to get your points where you can.
I don't think Missouri is going to be in a tiebreaker situation for the SEC.
I don't either.
Now, Missouri actually, their schedule isn't too difficult. The next 2 weeks, they play UMass out on the road. Could never know, going up to Massachusetts versus Auburn, and then they get on the road at Alabama. I think on the road at Alabama is going to humble them a good bit. I know Alabama did just lose to Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt nearly beat Missouri on the road, so I would take that with a grain of salt. I think Vanderbilt should have beat Missouri, and I think Missouri is proving to be a little bit of a fraud, and I think Alabama is going to be hungry at that point and probably beat down Missouri.
Speaking of that, Jake, I think South Carolina might be cursed. So,
well, if you want to talk about cursed teams, I got a cursed team for you.
Who you got?
Michigan is now cursed.
Oh, Michigan's not cursed. They did this to themselves.
No.
Self-inflicted wounds.
We saw Florida State. The man didn't eat the poop.
Oh, and now the person didn't put their hand in the blender.
No, and this guy also said he would eat the poop, and his account is now deactivated.
We got 2 poop eaters. Don't say it. Why? If you're not going to eat poop, don't say it.
AJ1827 said that it was a sarcastic joke and that his followers knew that. Sorry, bro. If you're going to say that you would eat it out of a red Solo cup, if you said you would eat dog poop out of a red Solo cup as sarcasm after we've already seen what happened earlier this year, you're not smart. Like,
why'd you delete your Twitter though?
He didn't delete it. It looks like he got reported so many times that it became inactive.
That's awesome. Well, you know what? They deserve that. I bet that guy's name is Sonner Catalians.
Yeah. It's likely that. Like, let's talk about the Michigan here real quick, because
is this an upset? Is it an upset? Take the rank out of it. Is Washington that bad to think that they would be upsetting Michigan? Because I'm pretty sure Washington came in. Were they favorites?
Washington was a 2.5-point favorite in this game.
Yeah. So why are people calling this an upset? Vegas knew.
So, official statement from AJ. That's the guy.
Oh, yeah.
My account has been officially banned. I don't know when or if I'll be able to access it again. He made a second account. That one also got banned. But as of right now, it seems my time on Twitter is over. I spent months growing my account. It's been a blast. All that time was wiped away instantly. I really hope I'm able to access my account but for now it's hashtag free AJ. I'm assuming the reason that I'm banned right now is due to the quote dog poop incident. People probably mass reported me and my other account that was also banned. Hashtag free AJ.
Dude, just eat the poop. Just eat the poop. That's how you fix this. You just eat the poop.
You cannot go online and promise to eat dog poop if your team loses. Watch your team lose and then not do it because the internet does not forget.
Especially with what's going on at Florida State. They're cursed too. You saw that. And it's because they're not eating poop. Jake, DJ hurt his throwing hand. That throwing hand is what you would normally use to eat. It's all correlated.
It's all correlated.
All correlated. So had that the Seminoles guy, Knowles 32169 or whatever, had he eaten the poop, Florida State might be undefeated right now. Oh, excuse me, one loss because he would eat the poop after Georgia Tech.
They would have beaten Clemson.
They've been 2 loss. They've been 2 loss. The poop is not going to beat Tigers. You can't. There's a lot of math that goes into that, Jake, that you're not ready for. The poop,
it's like calculus.
Yeah.
Nobody actually knows how it works.
Well, because look what happened. They didn't eat the poop and he lost to the Tigers, the Memphis Tigers. So they already got that one out of the way. You can't get 2 Tigers. So it was already atoned for.
I got you. Can we talk about Michigan's quarterback situation?
Who?
Exactly.
They have a quarterback? I thought they played halfback, fullback, tailback, A back, B back, C back,
up back.
We our winning ways ain't coming back.
Davis Warren starts the year. They put Alex Orji in, who doesn't actually might have set Michigan football back 10 years with his
10?
lack of forward pass. The whole team probably set the sport of football back about 10 years with watching them. And then they bring in Jack Tuttle, the 9th-year senior, who has thrown for like 1,500 yards in his career. Actually looks half decent, but also throws the game-losing interception.
Yep.
Against a Washington team that just lost to Rutgers last week.
A good Rutgers team.
A good Rutgers team.
Pretty sure it was in Piscataway. You can't sleep on Piscataway.
Washington tried to give the game away because their kicker is just absolutely terrible. But the fact is that guy was also like a Lou Groza finalist last year. And he's missed, I think, 5 field goals in the last like 3 weeks.
He's got the actually. There's two things that Michigan can do to turn their season around right now, Jake. You want to hear them?
Eat the poop.
Number 1 is eat the poop. You're right. You're exactly right. They can go ahead and preemptively eat the poop, and that will reset all the cursing that they have right now. Number 2, hire Paul Johnson. Fully embrace what you're doing right now and just run the hell out of the triple option. Put Alex Orji back there. Use Donovan Edwards. Use Khalil Mullings. Just run the football. That's all you can do. Just fully embrace this culture that you've now accidentally created. Just run the ball.
Yeah, I think they just need to do that. The problem is they were doing that Saturday, and Washington's DBs were basically daring Alex Orji to throw the ball. They were just playing man coverage, putting a bunch of guys in the box, which we said they should do earlier this year. If anybody's going to play them, play that. Put 8 guys in the box and drop 3 and see if Colston Loveland and whoever their wide receivers are that have all of like 50 yards on the year can beat you. And shockingly, Michigan does not have good receivers. Samaj Morgan is like their best guy, and I think he's got 72 yards before last week. He might have more than that now. Colston Loveland, obviously a very good tight end, probably going to be a first-round pick. Problem is, if you've only got one real weapon in your passing game, people can key on that really, really quick.
Would you rather have Florida State's or Michigan's wide receiver room right now?
Probably Florida State's. I think Florida State has been unlucky with their schedule this year. I think Florida State actually had a very tough schedule to start the year. They didn't get a tune-up game. They didn't get to play, Southwestern Florida Coast University of the school in the blind. They started off with Georgia Tech, who was looked at as a team that was likely going to make a bowl game. Boston College, who is way better than they thought they were. Memphis, who is being viewed as a long shot of potential college football playoff team. Cal, who they beat, but still a team that is way better than people thought it would be. SMU, who has only lost one game, and it's been BYU, and then Clemson. They got no favors with their schedule. This schedule is actually a gauntlet, and I find it hard to believe that many teams would actually go undefeated outside of maybe your like top 4 or 5 teams with this schedule.
Jake, they've played 6 games. 6 games?
Yes.
Their leading receiver has 18 catches on the year for 306 yards.
That's more than Michigan does.
Did you see the amount of drops they had in the Clemson game?
I did not.
It was atrocious.
I did see. There was a couple where it was like straight up in the hands and hit him in the chest. And
there was 3 big play opportunities that they just straight up dropped the ball. If I'm Brock Glenn, who played really well, by the way, if I'm Brock Glenn, I'm walking in that locker room. I'm going up to every single receiver. I'm whispering something into their ear, and then I'm slapping them in the face. Because they robbed what could have been a great game because they played like poo-poo. They played like what should have been in that Red Solo Cup and that Michigan fans. The Michigan fan Solo Cup. They played awful. They've been terrible all year. I don't think you know what you have in Michigan's wide receivers because you don't have anybody who can throw the ball farther than five yards on the field.
Would you rather have Jack Tuttle or DJU?
DJU. The only reason I say that is because he has something that you've seen before. You've seen him do something good before, so there's always that little bit of hope that he can do it again. And you can do what Clemson did his last year and just say, you know what, DJ, you are not throwing the ball anymore. We're just going to run a lot of quarterback power, and you're just going to we're just going to take the air out of the ball and run.
What if I give you the option of Jack Tuttle / Alex Orji / Davis Warren or DJU?
I'm still rocking with DJU. Yeah, that's just bad.
Michigan might have the worst quarterback room in all of Power 4. I'll take that back. Northwestern's not a very good team. One of those guys might be better than a Northwestern quarterback. And I'm trying to think who else is terrible. Like Virginia has 4 wins right now. Like there's not really too many teams I would take.
Would you rather have KJ Jefferson or Alex Orji?
KJ Jefferson. Alex Orji's thrown for 130 yards in his career.
In his career. We're laughing. This is bad, Michigan fans. This is bad.
It's really bad.
It's going to be a long year. It's going to be.
You know what else is bad? Losing to Minnesota on a goal line sneak.
They should have lost to Minnesota.
Yeah, I know. The ball looked like it was fumbled or something like that, but USC ends up losing to Minnesota. There's a lot of USC fans that said it was fumbled. A goal line sneak, if you can't win and if you let Minnesota get the whole way down there and you were tied, you probably should have beat Minnesota before they got the whole way there.
USC is not built to play in the Big Ten. We talked about this. They're good. No. They don't have the big hog mollies to play. And I was listening to Josh Pate earlier, and he put it perfectly. The average weight of Minnesota's offensive line is 310 pounds. The average weight of USC's defensive line, I think he said, was around 260 pounds. I'll put it how Kirby Smart said it. Big guys beat the hell out of little guys. So how do you win games? You get the big guys. So you're just going to get pushed around. This isn't the pass happy Pac-12. USC would have been better off going to the Big 12. I think they would have fit in perfectly in the Big 12.
Do you think that's going to change? I think Lincoln Riley's on the hot seat. That might be a hot take. I think Lincoln Riley's on the hot seat. But I think his seat is getting warm because if they play Penn State this weekend, which right now they're not favored. Now teams have struggled to go cross country, so we'll see. See how Penn State does going cross country here. But I think USC is going to be I think Lincoln Riley's on the hot seat. This is not going well. They started the first year of Lincoln Riley. They nearly made the playoffs. They were 1 game away. They needed to be Utah, and Utah slapped them around.
Yep.
Last year, Cam Rising, back when he was not a game time decision, somehow is still a game time decision, like 3 weeks later. Now they're going to play Penn State this weekend. Then they go to Maryland. That's not going to be an easy game. They're going to host Rutgers, which is not going to be an easy game. Play at Washington, not an easy game. Go to Nebraska. should beat UCLA, and then Notre Dame. I think that they might be 6-6 or 7-5. And if you're USC, is that acceptable at this point? 3 years in, is that acceptable to only be a 7-5 team?
Well, and we said at the beginning of the year he needed at least 8 wins to save his job. 7 or 6, he's on the hot seat. Anything less than, if they don't make a bowl, he's gone.
Yeah, if he doesn't make a bowl game, oh my goodness, he's gone. And someone made the point to me that he's had to rebuild the roster. What is year 3 then? What is year 3?
He has been rebuilding the roster.
And you've been seeing a decline. It hasn't been getting better. It's been getting worse. Now they lost to Minnesota. They honestly probably should have lost to Wisconsin. They were losing at halftime. Wisconsin was pushing them around. He needs this win against Penn State. Like, Lincoln Riley needs the win against Penn State. This might be the most important game this weekend for a specific coach. I think a lot of the other coaches, they can afford a loss. Like when you look at the Oregon-Ohio State game, both of them can lose the game. They're fine. If Lincoln Riley loses to Penn State this weekend, I think there's a realistic chance he could be fired before the end of October.
Are you going to eat the poop if he doesn't?
No.
I think, spoiler alert, because this game is part of our predictions. I think Penn State is going to beat him by at least 20. I think Penn State is about to drum them. Because you got to think, USC struggled against Wisconsin, struggled against Minnesota. Minnesota and Wisconsin played very similarly to what Penn State is. But Penn State has much more talent than both those teams combined. I think it's going to be a bloodbath. I really do.
I don't think you're far
USC
off there.
couldn't beat Michigan. And Michigan, you know what Michigan's doing every single play.
Yeah, USC losing to Minnesota was very concerning to me. Now, the spread was like 10 points, and part of it, I think, was going across the country to Minnesota. But, Darius Taylor ran the ball for 144 yards, average 5.8 yards per carry. Minnesota ran the ball for 193 yards. Minnesota is not any sort of killer in the Big Ten. They're an average team. They might struggle to make a bowl game, Minnesota. They're going to be like right around that 6-win mark. They're not going to end up going 9-3. They're not going to win out. They've got a bunch of difficult games left. And if you're struggling against Minnesota, I mean, also the question is, where's Zachariah Branch? He had 3 catches for 10 yards.
Yeah.
What is the game plan here? Where are you working to try to get your playmakers in? I don't understand it. The defense has gotten significantly better, but it feels like the offense has taken a significant step back.
Yeah. It's just not looking good for Lincoln Riley and company. I like Lincoln Riley. Well, I don't know how I feel about Lincoln Riley. I don't like Lincoln Riley. I was about to say a lie. I don't like him. I don't like what he did at Oklahoma. I don't like how he handled that whole situation. And then he hasn't done anything to help himself at USC. I kind of felt bad for him. I guess is what I was getting at, but it's not looking good for him. He'll be an offensive coordinator somewhere soon.
Let's move on to this weekend. We got 3 major games. We kind of talked about the Penn State USC game a little bit. We'll touch on that here again in a little bit. The biggest one for this weekend, this is a game that I think people have had circled on their schedule for 6 months. Ohio State will travel to Oregon on Saturday night, 7:30 game. This is the first, I don't want to say first real test for Ohio State, but like it's first real test. Iowa, we all kind of knew their offense wasn't going to do enough. Their defense was going to provide a little bit of a test. Now it's time for a real test. Oregon has played Boise State, though, and while people might want to think that they're a Power 4 team, Ashton Jeanty is the best running back in the country, and it's not even close. Yeah. Hashtag Heisman. So Oregon is a little bit more battle-tested when you talk about it. Now, when you say battle-tested, both of these are very veteran teams. It's not like these guys have never played in a big game before in their lives. When you look at Ohio State, they've got tons of guys that have been playing in big games. Will Howard has been playing for a ton of years. Emeka Ibuka has been playing for a ton of years. Travion Henderson, Quinshon Judkins, those guys have been playing in a ton of games. Caleb Downs, played in the Rose Bowl last year. It's not like these guys haven't been around the block. Oregon, same thing. Dylan Gabriel, been playing in a lot of big games. Jordan James, their running back, has been on an absolute tear this year. To you, what is going to be the key in this game on Saturday?
The key is going to be Ohio State's offense. Can Ohio State's offense function consistently against another high-powered offense? So, and I use that term a little lightly. I haven't been sold on Oregon's offense this year. I think they've been very spotty. I think they escaped a couple times after making some pretty massive mistakes against who they played last week, where they kept turning the ball in the red zone.
Michigan State.
Michigan State. You can do that against Michigan State. Can't do that against Ohio State. But what Ohio State has to do, Ohio State has to get out there and establish an offensive rhythm. I think Ohio State's defense is going to handle business. I think this is going to be a low-scoring game. But I think Ohio State is going to be able to pull out later because you talk about Oregon being more battle-tested, but I would have to disagree. I think at this point, Ohio State's played a harder schedule. They've both played Michigan State, but Ohio State's played Iowa. And we can laugh at Iowa all we want. Iowa's offense is a lot more capable than it used to be the past couple of years. And their defense is exactly what they are every single year. They're the guys you're not going to run the football very well up against them unless you're Ohio State. And you're going to have trouble passing the ball against them. You're not going to score 20 points at will. And Ohio State dropped 35 on their head. So I think Ohio State has proven more at this point as to who they are. But they haven't had adversity yet. Ohio State's biggest adversity was going down 7 to Marshall. And, that wasn't a Vanderbilt situation. They weren't going to lose to Marshall. So if they can establish some offensive rhythm, I think this game could get bad, honestly.
You have way more confidence than I do.
Well, I'm not the one wearing Ohio State hoodie right now.
You would be correct on there. So I think the key to this game comes down to Dillon Gabriel. I think Dillon Gabriel, we've seen a lot of dink and dunk passes, haven't seen a lot of pushing the ball downfield. And I think they're going to need to try to get their playmakers in space. When you talk about, guys like Evan Stewart, Tej Johnson, Trayshawn Holden, trying to get those guys into space. Ohio State obviously has good cornerbacks. You got a guy like a Denzel Burke over there. You got a Caleb Downs on the defense. The linebackers for Ohio State haven't been truly tested. So getting their guys into space, seeing what they can do. Dillon Gabriel does not have the strongest arm. He's not going to be able to light you up throwing the ball 50 yards in the air, 60 yards in the air. But he is accurate in short yardage. When he gets past 10 yards, I made a joke on Friday that after 10 yards, it's like a shotgun blast. You have no idea where it's going.
Yeah.
So,
but you can't live on dinks and dunks against Ohio State. You can't. They're too athletic.
He needs to be able to lock in and be able to hit these 10, 15-yard routes. Iowa found a little bit of success moving the ball on some of these 10, 15-yard routes. Some crossing patterns, some post routes, they actually almost hit on a deep ball on Denzel Burke on Saturday. So can Dillon Gabriel push the ball downfield, or is everything going to be within 10 yards? Because if everything's within 10 yards, the offense becomes way more predictable. Yes, okay, Jordan James can break some tackles. Yes, Tej Johnson can break some tackles. But it becomes a lot less of a threat if everything's going to be within 10 yards. I will be incredibly interested to see what the Ohio State offense looks like. The rushing attack has been very strong with Quinshon Judkins and Travion Henderson, like we all thought it would be. Will Howard is who we thought he was. I still believe that he is a better fit for Ohio State than Kyle McCord was. That's not saying Kyle McCord was bad. I think Kyle McCord is a better fit for Syracuse. Will Howard showed a little bit of ability to run the last couple of games when something's not open that he runs for it. The problem is, as a sixth-year quarterback or fifth-year quarterback, whatever he is, he still tends to try to force a couple balls. Jeremiah Smith made a one-handed catch on Saturday. Now, Jeremiah Smith might – yeah, I know, shocking. He made another one. Jeremiah Smith might always be open even when he's not open, but there have been a couple plays where he's gotten lucky because his receivers have bailed him out, but he is throwing clearly into double coverage, and his receivers just make a good enough play to bail him out.
That's a good point.
I think Oregon's secondary is going to be better than any of them that they face this year. Now, Iowa's got a good secondary. Iowa was able to get an interception. They forced a fumble on Jeremiah Smith. I will be interested to see how the Oregon defense lines up, and can they get pressure on Will Howard, and what does that look like? Does Will Howard take off when he's run? Does he try to force passes? Like, what does that look like? How much pressure do they get?
Well, I think an even bigger matchup is flip it on the other side. Oregon is 46th in the country in sacks allowed, and Ohio State, they haven't been getting as many sacks as we had thought they would this year, but they still are very talented on that defensive line. And you want to talk about not being able to push the ball downfield? If you can't have the ball in your hand for more than 4 seconds, you're done. I mean, so it's going to come down to the trenches. And Ohio State's biggest question mark coming into the season was that offensive line. And Oregon's defensive line, like you said earlier, has been playing lights out. They've been playing pretty good lately. Jordan Birch, the transfer from South Carolina, is finally starting to hit his stride this year. So, I mean, we'll see. I think Mateo Uiagalelei, is he playing defensive line?
He is. I don't know how many snaps he's getting, but I know he is playing.
Ohio State is 8th in the country in sacks. I think they're going to be all over Dylan Gabriel like a cheap suit. I mean, I'm sorry. I really think this could be a double-digit win for Ohio State.
I'm trying to look up real quick how many sacks Ohio State has allowed this year, because I do not believe it to be a lot.
It's not. They're in the
Ohio
top.
State has only allowed 4 sacks so far this year.
Yeah, they're one of the top in the country.
So, now granted, take that with a grain of salt, because some of the games have been like, Marshall and Akron and Western Michigan.
But the stacks count the same whether you're backup center, whether your starter's in. And when when you're blowing these people out, your backups are playing. So your backups are keeping your backup quarterback, up. And they're still playing the starters for a lot of these teams. So I wouldn't write that off. We've got six games of a data set. I think teams are who they are at this point. So yeah. I'm very confident in Ohio State's ability. And you got to think, too, Oregon is 46th in the country in sacks allowed, and they've played Idaho. So
make a point there.
I'm very confident in Ohio State this weekend. I'm not very confident. I haven't been wowed by Oregon at all. Yes, they beat the snot out of Michigan State, but they don't look like a well-oiled machine. They don't look like the normal Oregon offense that we're used to seeing. And the defense is hit or miss. I mean, you have a team like Boise State who is able to run the ball all over them. Is that because it's Ashton Jeanty, or is there gaps in that Oregon defense? We will find out, because we have 2 running backs at Ohio State who are absolutely phenomenal, and they can both start anywhere in the country.
Except maybe on Boise State.
Except maybe Boise State.
As wild as that is to say.
That is insane to say, but it's very true.
All right, we got the Red River rivalry showdown, whatever they decide that they're calling it now. Texas and Oklahoma are going to play at this Texas State Fair this week. That's the important thing. They're going to play this weekend. It's going to be a phenomenal game. Number 1, Texas is going to play the Oklahoma Sooners. It sounds like Quinn Ewers is going to be making his return. They've been targeting this game for the Quinn Ewers return. I think they felt comfortable enough with Arch Manning the last couple of games to just let him go, not have to worry about Quinn Ewers, who's made of glass, to come back early and then hurt himself before the Oklahoma game. Texas looks like a well-oiled machine. You talk about Oregon looking like one. Texas looks like they're a well-oiled machine. Quinn Ewers, obviously, this is going to be his 3rd time playing Oklahoma. Oklahoma makes the change at quarterback, blanking on his name, but Jackson Arnold is no longer the starter. Michael Hawkins. That's
Michael Hawkins, yeah.
Michael Hawkins. Oklahoma has a very strong defense, but Texas really hasn't faced a good offense, and they really won't this weekend either. But can Oklahoma's defense do enough to slow down Texas to give them a chance?
I think they can. And the reason I think that, Jake, is because Texas is very thin at running back right now. They do rank 37th in the country in running the football, but I'm curious to see what their running backs, with their thin running back room, can do against a defense like Oklahoma. I think we might see some struggles from this Texas offense for the first time this year because of Oklahoma's ability on defense. I think Texas ends up winning this game. I think something just crawled on my foot. You don't get that anywhere else. You don't get that in ESPN. I'm over here podcasting barefoot like a redneck. That doesn't happen to other places. So stuff doesn't crawl on their feet, they know about it. Anyway, I think this is going to be the first big test for Texas's offense. And I think if there's any weaknesses on that offense, we're going to find it out this weekend. And I really do think it's the running game. They're going to have to rely on Quinn Ewers, and hopefully they can keep him upright and keep him off the ground, because the best way to keep him from getting hurt is to not let him get hit. Even though his injury, this last injury, I think was non-contact caused. Am I correct in that?
I don't remember why he's injured, but I know he's missed 2 games now. To me, Oklahoma has not been able to run the football that well. Javonte Barnes is their leading rusher with 199 yards. Jackson Arnold was the second leading rusher at 138. Taylor Taden, pretty highly ranked running back coming out of high school with 116. And then Michael Hawkins with 101. They've got to be able to run the football. Michael Hawkins is a true freshman. You're not going to be able to just air it out the whole game. You're not going to be able to do that. Right. Also, I don't think that they have the wide receivers to match up. Now, Texas last year, we know that they were not good against the pass. This year, they really have not been tested in the passing game. When you look at it, they played Michigan, who started Davis Warren. That was the key game for them so far this year.
Right.
UTSA, UL Monroe, Mississippi State, Colorado State, they blew every one of them out. Wasn't even close. Just scored at will. Oklahoma has to keep this game close in the first half. They cannot let Texas jump out to 28 points in the first half. If this game gets above 24 points, I don't think Oklahoma has a remote chance.
Nope.
Oklahoma, I don't have confidence in scoring more than 24 points. Maybe if it got down late and they were doing something, but this game has to be like 10-7, 14-10 at halftime. Like, they've got to get multiple stops in the first half. They have to play, honestly, they have to play the old school Big Ten field position game. They need to get stops and play the field position game where you stop them at the 20, they punt it, you get to the 30, and then you push it up to the 50 and you punt. They get inside their 10. They punt it back to you. You get the 50. Like, you have to play the old school.
Sounds like a Big Ten fan right here.
You have to go back to the old school, like Iowa, Wisconsin games. Like, you've got to play a field possession game to get the ball moving here. And you need to take calculated risks that you can't go for it on 4th and 3 at the Texas 47, because if they get it, you're giving Texas a very short field. You have to take your calculated risk when it makes sense, when it feels right, when the momentum's in your favor. Taking a 4th down risk or taking deep shots when it's not right is going to kill Oklahoma in this game.
Yeah, I think, like you said, Oklahoma needs to make this game happen in a phone booth. If they can control the clock, keep the ball out of Texas's offense's hands, I think they can hang around. And then you never know what can happen in this game. Like, I know it's cliche to say in rivalry games that anything can happen. I have seen some wacky things happen in this rivalry game where the team that has no business even being on the same field as the other one wins. I mean, I want to say it was Oklahoma just a couple of years ago had no business being out there, and they just got was it last year? I think last year Oklahoma ended up beating Texas, and Texas had just come off and beaten Alabama. Oklahoma was struggling, and Oklahoma goes and just freaking stuns them. So anything can happen.
This game has had some wild finishes. They went 4 overtimes in 2020. Like, the team that's been lower ranked typically loses, but last year Oklahoma was the lower ranked team and they won. Now, I will say the higher ranked team does typically win, at least in the last 10 years, but that's not always true.
Yeah, it'll be a fun game. Old Jimmy Greenbeans down there, Brent Venables. Talk about someone who's going to take some risk. It's going to be him. I'm excited to see how he does in this game.
Moving into our last game here, Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss will face off against LSU in a game where who is actually a real contender and who is being fake already.
Yeah, I think so. A little sneak peek. I wanted to put my walk-on picks for underdog. I wanted them to be both the quarterbacks because I think this game is going to be very similar to the Ole Miss LSU game last year, where it's just points after points after points after points after points. Ole Miss's defense has played well this year, but they haven't played an offense that can do anything. I mean, South Carolina's offense is abysmal, and if they can't run the football, which they could not against Ole Miss, they struggled. I think they got 3 points in the game. Kentucky is an anomaly. I don't know how the heck what they did to Ole Miss without being one dimensional. But Ole Miss and LSU both are really, really good at throwing the football, regardless of both of their woes this year. They're both really good at throwing the football. So I think this game could come down to who makes the least amount of mistakes and who's got the ball last.
Yeah, I don't know what to make of LSU. Like that first game, they lose to USC. We're seeing what USC is now. South Carolina goes toe-to-toe with them. Ole Miss beats up on South Carolina. Transitive property doesn't really work in college football for anybody who really thinks it does. UCLA takes them to the half, basically tied. And I think it might have actually been tied. And then they beat up on South Alabama, who I thought South Alabama might give them a fight. South Alabama actually played two teams that were atrociously bad and scored 150 points in 2 games. Now we get a game between these two, and to me, the loser is just an absolute pretender. Like we're seeing neither of these teams play super difficult games so far. Like Ole Miss was expected to be a legitimate college football playoff contender. They lose this game, and for all intents and purposes, they're out of the college football playoff because they're going to lose this game. If they lose this game, they still have Oklahoma, Arkansas, Georgia, Florida, Mississippi State. They will lose one of those games.
Yeah,
they will lose at least one of those games. Finish 9-3. If their only actual serious win is Oklahoma, they've got no reason to be in the college football playoff. A 9-3 team with a win over Oklahoma. Sorry, that's not good enough. If they beat Georgia, we'll have a discussion. But until that happens, it's just a discussion. And it's all hypothetical. I really thought Ole Miss would be way better than what they are. You know, they beat up on South Carolina, which they should. Jackson Dart threw for 285 yards, only completed half his passes. You know, the running game, 140 yards. Like
South Carolina's defense played pretty good against them.
I'm just not super impressed with Ole Miss right now. The first couple of games, they beat up on the teams that they were supposed to beat up on. Like none of those teams are good. Furman, Middle Tennessee State, Wake Forest, Georgia Southern. None of those teams are good.
Right.
And now they get into the meat of their schedule. Yeah, they beat South Carolina, but they lose to a Kentucky team.
Their first test. That was their first test of the year.
First test of the year. And really, it was a team that you wanted them to go out and you won them by 21 points to show that they were for real. And they laid an egg. And I'm not believing in it. LSU, I don't believe that Brian Kelly is the right fit for them. I'm not a fan of either of these teams. I don't think the long term right now, the fit is correct. We'll see what happens. Lane Kiffin continues to kind of reach the upper end of Ole Miss. I don't know if he can take them to another level or if Ole Miss is just, that's what they are. Like that's the highest they can go. I think LSU needs this win though. I think Lane Kiffin might need it more because then he can actually be a college football playoff contender. But if LSU loses, you're going to have LSU fans ready to run Brian Kelly out of town.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, like you said, the loser is eliminated. But I don't think we learn anything about or you said the loser is a pretender, but I don't think we learn much about the winner in this case.
I don't think we do either. They just continue to survive for another week and they continue to be a potential college football playoff team. But
Very confusing team.
I don't actually believe in either of these teams long term this year. They both have difficult schedules left. LSU still has at Arkansas, at Ole Miss, or at Arkansas, at A&M, versus Bama, versus Vandy, versus Oklahoma.
Yeah.
So there's definitely at least one more, if not two more lost in there. Both ththese teams can have 9-3 or 8-4, and neither of them make the playoff, honestly.
I think the tooth fairy comes to my house before either of these teams make noise in the playoff.
Yes, I would 1,000% agree with that. All right. Are you ready to take your college football fandom to the next level? Then you need to check out Underdog. It's the easiest way to draft your perfect team or make pick'em entries for all the biggest games. We've been using Underdog all season long. Williams actually nailed his last 4 weeks of underdog picks.
I'm on a 4-game heater, 4-week heater.
4-week heater. Just you need to
Casually,
trust it.
humbly.
We've been using it. It's a game changer. Sign up today using promo code Walk-On to claim your free pick plus a first-time deposit up to $1,000 in bonus cash. Visit underdogfantasy.com or find them in the App Store. You must be 18 or older to play, and terms will apply. Like you said, you're on a heater. You want to go first? 4 weeks in a row, you've nailed it.
I can go first. That way people can go ahead and just put the money in as soon as they hear me talk. I alluded to it earlier. I wanted both the quarterbacks in the LSU Ole Miss game. Walk on. Underdog Fantasy is only offering one right now, which is Jackson Dart, higher than 289.5 passing yards. LSU is ranked 99th in the country in passing yards allowed. I think this trend continues. I think Jackson Dart and company are going to be able to throw the ball all over this LSU defense. So I'm feeling pretty good about that one. And then my next one is Quinshon Judkins, higher than 74.5 rushing and receiving yards combined. There's only been 3 games where he hasn't done that. And one of them he technically did, but he had a negative 2-yard reception. So he would have had it just been the rushing yards against Iowa. But the other 2, Akron and Michigan State, he only ran for 51 and 55 yards respectively. So I'm very, very high on Quinshon Judkins against this Oregon defense. I think they're going to use him early. I think they're going to use him often. I think him and Trevion Henderson are going to get a nice, hefty workload, and I think both of them might eclipse the 75-yard mark. But my money's on Quinshon.
My 2 plays last week, one of them was Jeremiah Smith to go higher than half a rushing or receiving touchdown. That hit. He has now scored in every game. Was not available this week, or else I thought that would just be, a very easy pick. I don't know why they didn't offer it. Man scored in every game. But anyways, and then last week I also took Ashton Jeanty higher than 192.5 rushing yards. He had 186 in the first half, and then they benched him. That is a brutal loss, like absolute brutal loss. The fact that he had 186 in the first half, I thought it was a guaranteed lock, and then he did not play the second half.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, I had Phil Maffa last week, and he had like 40 yards in the first half. I had him to go higher than 87. And I was
he had a 40-yard run. In
the second half, he ran for 90 yards. So It was great.
Well, I'm sticking with Jeremiah Smith again this week. Longest reception higher than 28.5 yards. His longest has been higher in every game but one this year, and his only one that he wasn't higher was 27 yards. Jeremiah Smith and Emeka Egbuka are clearly the top 2 receivers. Carnell Tate didn't play last week. Carnell Tate doesn't play again. Obviously, it's going to be Jeremiah Smith and Emeka Egbuka. I think Jeremiah Smith is going to be used as the deep threat, and Egbuka is going to be the short yardage, end up with 7, 8, 9 receptions. Woody Marks, the USC running back, I have him going higher than 23.5 receiving yards. He's crossed this in his last 4 games. Penn State is going to play a very similar style defense to Michigan, and he had, I believe, 5 receptions for 30 yards in that game. So they're going to look to get Woody Marks the ball, and it's not going to be on the ground. I think they're going to look to give him the ball in the air, swing passes, some sort of way to get him the ball in space. I think he crosses this 23.5 pretty easily. Look for him to be probably around 30, 35 yards. All right, let's get into our walk-on weekly 10. Both of us went 4 and 10 last week. Really rough week for us.
We took the week off.
Yeah, we took the week off, and our picks took a pretty bad beating. Somebody in the walk-on weekly 10, I believe, somebody might have went 8-2 finally. Let me double check that. Somebody might have finally went 8-2.
We gotta give them a shout out. They did.
We did. Kevin Ridley went 8-2 last week. Best week so far for anybody. If you're not playing already, there's still plenty of time to join us. You just have to play in 5 weeks to get a chance to win some Walk-On Redshirt merch. It's only week 7. You play the next 5 weeks. It just takes you through week 11. Highest winning percentage will win. You have to play in 5 weeks. Right now, Updog Sports Talk is winning. They've only played in 1 week. Plenty of time to get back in. Justin, our own Justin Kripe is in second. Played in 4 weeks at 57.5%. Overall, we're not doing great overall, people. A lot of people under 50%. Well, let's get into what our picks are for this week.
Hey, shout out to Kevin Ridley, by the way. A couple weeks ago, all of his friends were dogging him at the App State game how he didn't know ball, so they all started jumping in on our preview picks, our prediction picks, and to go 8-2, I really hope you show these guys that you officially know ball. So way to go, Kevin Ridley.
You know ball. All right, first game here we got Friday night. Number 16 Utah is a 6.5 point favorite over Arizona State.
Is Cam Rising playing this game?
He is a game time decision.
Yeah, I don't know what to think. I'm going Utah just because I like the consistency in Utah, even though we don't have any consistency in quarterback play. I thought Arizona State looked really good against Texas State. I think they're a decent team, but I think Utah is just better all around. So I'll go Utah minus 6.5.
So I'm going to differentiate here. I'm going to take Arizona State this week.
I like
the lack of clarity at the quarterback position concerns me. Arizona State has played actually pretty well this year. They're 4-1, flying under the radar. Every game has been close for them, with the exception of Wyoming. I think they keep this game close. I'm not sure if they win it, but I think this is going to be a low-scoring game, especially if Zach Wilson's little brother, Isaac Wilson, is the starting quarterback. Utah is not moving the ball as well with Wilson as the quarterback. I could see this being a very low-scoring game and Arizona State covering but not winning.
Yeah.
Second game we got here, probably our least favorite game here to pick. Wisconsin versus Rutgers. Rutgers is a 2.5 point favorite.
I don't know what to think about this game, Jake. Where is this game being played?
In Piscataway.
I gotta go with Rutgers in Piscataway.
Yeah, I'm gonna take Rutgers as well. They've looked good so far this year. I mean, they did lose last week to Nebraska. It was like 50-mile-an-hour winds. You were on the road in Lincoln. Lincoln's not an easy place to play. They're back home this week. Wisconsin, Braden Locke's playing quarterback right now. Ches Malusi has stepped away from football for a little while. Sounds like injuries have beaten him up a little bit and then taken a little bit of hit on his mental side. Not really sure what we're going to get with Wisconsin. I'm going to take Rutgers as well.
Yeah, too much unknown.
Iowa State, number 11 Iowa State. Cannot believe that they are number 11 right now. Undefeated. They are traveling to West Virginia. 3-point favorite.
Did anybody pick them as like a dark horse or like their walk-on team of the year?
Did you?
Oh, maybe it was me, Jake. I think so. I'm going with my Cyclones. I think this is one of those games where Iowa State could trip up and lose. But I want to go with the fact that I think Iowa State is legitimate this year. And they're not going to have one of those choke games where they fall apart against a team that they should definitely beat. So I've got Iowa State this one covering.
I'm going to take Iowa State here as well. West Virginia, they look good against Oklahoma State last week, but I think I'm out on Oklahoma State. I think that was more of an indication on Oklahoma State being not good and not living up to their hype with Alan Bowman and Ollie Gordon Jr. than it was on West Virginia being that good. Iowa State has been consistent, 3 points on the road. I think they win this game. I think it is close, but, I think we're looking at a 7-point game, and I think Iowa State continues their winning streak here. Next game, Arizona will travel to number 14 BYU, who is a 4.5 point favorite over the Wildcats.
Yeah, I think Arizona wins this game. I think BYU, congratulations, you're 5-0, 5-1.
They're undefeated.
They're undefeated, 5-0. Or 6-0, whatever one they are. I don't think they're legit, though. I think Arizona's going to go in there and handle business. I think Arizona's going to smack them down a little bit.
Yeah, I'm in on Arizona here, too. BYU, they played a lot of close games. Arizona did take an L to Texas Tech last week. Just a little caveat. They did beat Utah the week prior. Arizona is kind of a wild card. You don't know what you're going to get. Is Noah Fifita and Tetero McMillan going to light it up, or are they going to disappear?
Yeah.
I don't know, but we're going to think that they show up this week.
That's right.
Cal is going to go across the country and play an ACC game against Pitt. Number 22, undefeated Pitt. Pitt is a 3.5 point favorite.
I like Eli Holstein. I think Cal is going to be a little hungover from their loss to Miami. They're going to cross the country, which, again, is really tough to do. This isn't professional football. These guys still have class. I'm going Pitt to cover this one.
I am going to differ here. I'm going to take Cal. Cal struggled to run the football against Miami. Jaden Ott scored on his receiving touchdown. I think that Cal wins this game. Pitt, Eli Holstein has looked good, but I think Cal is going to be in this game. I think Cal is going to be hungry. Cal wanted that game last week, and I think they come out with a different mentality, and I think they're able to rebound and win this game. Number 18, Kansas State is a 4.5-point favorite against Colorado. I'm on the road in Colorado in Boulder this weekend.
I was really close to sprinkling in one of my underdog fantasy picks on this one. I love Kansas State in this game. And the reason I do is because Colorado stinks in the trenches. They can't stop the run. And what does Kansas State do best? They run the hell out of the football.
I'm actually sticking with Colorado. It feels like, tastes like vinegar coming out my mouth, but I am taking Colorado. They looked really, really good against UCF. That was the game that very surprised me. I thought that UCF would take them toe-to-toe, and they absolutely obliterated UCF. I think this game is close. Kansas State has struggled throughout the year. They got beat down by BYU. They beat Arizona, but they went toe-to-toe with Tulane. I think Colorado actually wins this game, and I think that we start hearing a lot of Colorado chatter after this game as well. Not sure if that's good or bad.
It's bad. It's very bad.
Number 4, Penn State is a 4.5-point favorite over USC on Saturday. Who do you like?
Yeah, I talked about this a little bit earlier. I think Penn State's going to win. I think they're going to win big. I think they're going to cover this easily, maybe even 5 times the amount of what the spread is. I don't know if this is a rat line by Vegas, but I think Penn State owns them.
Yeah, I'm with you there. We've seen USC struggle against physical teams. Penn State has a very physical offensive line. The passing defense for Penn State has been a little bit of an issue, so I think there could be some struggles. Penn State has gotten off to a couple slow starts. I mean, they should have probably beat up on UCLA a little bit worse than they did, especially with a first start for UCLA again with Justin. I forget what his name was for UCLA. I could see this game being close at halftime, but I think Penn State runs away with it. I think they're just going to be too physical. Nick Singleton didn't play last week. Expected to play this week. If Nick Singleton plays, I think this could get out of hand real fast because he's explosive as a runner. Ole Miss is a 3.5-point favorite over number 13 LSU. Do you like number 9 Ole Miss or do you like LSU?
I like Ole Miss in this one. I think they got woken up by Kentucky. I think they handled business against South Carolina. The offense struggled against South Carolina, which you can't tell by the score. But the amount of opportunities that South Carolina handed them, that game should have been way more than 27-3. But I think they get right in this one against LSU. LSU's got too many holes on that defense, and I think the Rebels.
I'm right there. I'm right there with you. You almost took the exact words out of my mouth. I do think Ole Miss is more consistent on offense. LSU has struggled in games they shouldn't, and I think Ole Miss just takes advantage of it. This game being in Death Valley does give me a little bit of hesitation. I think there's a chance that LSU could win that because of that reason alone, but we'll stick with Ole Miss. Number 1, Texas is a 14.5-point favorite over Oklahoma. Do you like Texas or do you like Oklahoma?
This
is hard.
This is the toughest one to pick because this game could go one of 2 ways. This game could be a blowout in Texas's favor, or it could be a slugfest. I think the moment's too big for Oklahoma's offense, and I think that ends up costing them. I want to take Oklahoma plus 14.5 really badly, but I just can't do it. So I'm going Texas.
I'm taking Texas as well. I think Texas's offense is just too good. I don't think Oklahoma is going to be able to move the ball consistently enough, score enough points.
Right.
I like Texas to win this game, something in the range of like 31-14.
Yeah.
I think it's not far past that spread, but I think Texas is able to move the ball, score way more consistently. Michael Hawkins, just too young of a quarterback, not experienced enough to play in this kind of moment yet. Finally, we have number 2 Ohio State versus number 3 Oregon. The Buckeyes are 3.5-point favorites on Saturday.
We talked about this game earlier. I think Ohio State wins. I think they cover. I think they cover easily. I think they cover by double digits.
Yeah, I'm going to take Ohio State as well. Maybe that's a homer pick. Maybe it's not. I just think that the overall talent and skill positions for Ohio State on the offense and defense side of the ball is going to be the difference maker. Dylan Gabriel made a lot of mistakes last week against Michigan State. Will Howard made some mistakes as well. I think Dylan Gabriel's lack of the ability to push the ball down the field is going to be important and will likely be one of the biggest decision makers or deciding factors in this game. So give me the Buckeyes. We got two questions, both from the same guy, actually. Both from Austin Smith at CFB Headgear on Twitter. Says, interested in your thoughts on what will be remembered more, better for the sport. Upset-filled Volcano Saturday, like last weekend, or multiple heavyweight clashes like this upcoming week?
I think 11 times out of 10, it's the Volcano Saturday.
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, that's what makes college football beautiful, is that any given Saturday, something can happen. I think if you want to get heavyweight clashes every week, you can watch on Sunday. And we get enough heavyweight clashes, but it's nice to see when a team is counted out and has no shot, quote unquote, and comes in and just throws some haymakers, plays a good game. The team comes together. Just watching that happen, like, you don't get major upsets in the NFL where guys are screaming on the sideline, praising Jesus and saying the F word in the same sentence like that in the NFL. And I think this is one of the reasons why. It's because you have these big Volcano Saturdays. And another thing, like, talk about memorable, we still talk about 2007. And it's 17 years later? And that was like one of the most volcanic seasons ever. And this season's been equivalent. So, give me the volcanic Saturdays every day of the week. The heavyweight clashes happen. I don't care. I love to see an upset.
The amount of, if you want to think about it, think of the amount of Alabama versus LSU games that you can remember for whatever iconic reason. And then think about the amount of random upsets that you can almost picture where you were in the moment. I'm talking App State. I'm talking, for instance, I remember this one very well, was the 20-18 Penn State, Illinois 9 overtime game. The weird, the wacky, and the unpredictable are what make this sport great. Yeah, Ohio State and Oregon are going to play. Unless the game has the most ridiculous plays, goes to overtime, ends in wild fashion on a block kick or something like that, it'll be remembered for the year. It's not going to be remembered years from now. What we'll remember years from now, though, is Diego Pavia beating Alabama.
Absolutely. One of my buddies, his first ever football game he had ever attended was when South Carolina beat Alabama, number 1 Alabama at home. To tell him, I said, I just ruined college football for you. You'll never get something like that again. But that environment is just different. It's just different. And I've been to some good NFL games. I've been to some college, and I know you didn't bring this up as an NFL versus college thing, Austin, but that's what I want to equate it to is the volcanic Saturdays versus heavyweight clashes. You always remember the upsets. You always remember where you were. I remember who I was with, who I was talking to, what I was eating when Auburn had the immaculate catch against Georgia. Just continue that season of destiny when Nick Marshall throws it. It gets tipped by the safety. Auburn wide receiver runs under it, scores a touchdown. I mean, stuff like that is just absolutely phenomenal. Like you said, when Vanderbilt beats Alabama, when Kentucky beats Ole Miss, when teams when New Mexico State goes in and just drums Auburn, like these things are just beautiful.
Yeah, I can remember upsets way better than I can remember, even great games. Now, if it's like, for me, if it's like an Ohio State Michigan game, like I remember those very, very clearly. But there are even some for those that have faded for me that, it was just, I don't want to say just a game, but it wasn't super thrilling. It wasn't super exciting. There wasn't a ton of moments in it, but I can remember so much from some of these like massive upsets.
Yeah.
And then his second part of his question was And how are the legacy of upsets changed by the expansion of the playoff?
I don't think so.
I don't think the legacy has changed by that much. I think, if anything, the legacy can also help some of these underdogs because all of a sudden, depending on the situation, maybe they have a chance to get in it.
Yeah, there's stuff
Yeah.
on the line for them now. If anything, it changes it in a positive way.
Now, does it fully knock somebody out? No. Like, Alabama is not eliminated from the college football playoff. Alabama
Well,
wouldn't have been eliminated from the college football playoff last year if they had lost to Vanderbilt.
case in point, Notre Dame. Notre Dame is back in the conversation. They lost to a MAC team. They lost to NIU, which, again, that goes back to your first question, too. Amazing game. Everybody tuned in to watch Northern Illinois beat Notre Dame. But Notre Dame's still in the conversation for college football playoff somehow.
Yeah. I don't think it takes it away. Obviously, last year, a loss to Northern Illinois probably would have been a killer and almost eliminated Notre Dame from the college football playoff. This year, it's not. I think it still has as big of an impact. There's still the last seen impression on Twitter. There's still the ragging of that fan base on Twitter. They're still going to hear it. They're still going to be embarrassed. You still get to all unite as Northern Illinois fans for an hour.
Well, and at the end of the day, as a fan, the worst thing that happens on any Saturday is what? Losing. Anytime you lose, it sucks. I don't care if it's playoff implications or not. I think that's what sucks is that everyone's looking forward to the playoff. No, I want to enjoy Saturday. I want to enjoy Clemson beating Florida State. I want to enjoy the hell out of that as fully as possible. I want to enjoy this weekend when Clemson plays Wake Forest. If Clemson loses to Wake Forest, yeah, that hurts playoff implications massively. But if they win, it doesn't change anything. But it's still enjoyable. I want to enjoy Ohio State, Oregon. I want to enjoy it as it is. When we get closer to the playoff, yeah, I'll start thinking about that stuff. I don't like thinking about the weight and the effect of a win and loss every single Saturday. I just literally like to watch the games and enjoy it and talk about it. And then once we get close to the playoff, that stuff will handle itself. And we'll have more conversations to talk about. But I just love this sport way too much to get caught up in the weeds of obsessing over the playoff. I think the playoff is great for the sport. I love it. I might be one of the few like college football old heads who love the playoff and what it's doing. But on the other side of the coin, I don't care to talk about it until we're at least halfway through November.
Yeah, so I don't think it's as big of an impact as people think. Well, that'll do it for our show this week. We really appreciate everybody joining us here. Make sure to go and follow us on all social media, on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, on YouTube. You can follow us all on the Walk-On Redshirts. You can follow Will at Walk-On Moose on Twitter. Make sure to like and rate the podcast. We really appreciate that. Give us 5-star. Maybe you're a 4-star listener. Not everybody's a 5-star listener like Williams likes to say. Maybe you're a 4-star listener. And don't forget about Underdog. Make sure to go use promo code WALK-ON to claim your special pick and up to $1,000 in bonus cash. That'll do it for this week, and we will see you all again next week.